Novak Djokovic stood just one match away from history once again. A 25th Grand Slam title. A chance to become the oldest Australian Open champion the sport has ever seen. Another line in a resume that already towers over tennis history. Instead, Carlos Alcaraz played the role of spoiler, shutting the door on what could have been one of the most iconic moments of Djokovic's career. At T38, the Serbian legend remains competitive at the very highest level. He's still reaching finals, still beating elite opponents, still pushing the next generation to their limits. Yet the biggest titles have started to slip just out of reach. And now, a brutally honest assessment from one of tennis' most respected coaching voices has reignited a debate that refuses to go away. Is Novak Djokovic's biggest opponent no longer across the net, but inside his own head? A blunt verdict from Serena Williams' former coach Patrick Mouratoglou, the longtime coach of Serena Williams and one of the most influential minds in modern tennis, didn't mince words when addressing Djokovic's recent struggles at the slams. Taking to Instagram, Mouratoglou delivered a verdict that caught many fans off guard. Not because it was outrageous, but because of how direct it was. The only obstacle that prevents Novak from winning Grand Slams is his motivation, Mouratoglou said. I don't think he's motivated enough for the 25th. Otherwise, I think he would have done it. Coming from a coach who helped guide Serena Williams through some of the most dominant years in tennis history, the statement carried serious weight. Mouratoglou wasn't questioning Djokovic's fitness, his technique, or even his level. In his view, the issue is far more subtle and far more human. Still elite, still dangerous, but different few players in sports history have sustained excellence as long as Djokovic has. Even now, approaching 40, his movement remains extraordinary, his return game unmatched, and his mental toughness legendary. He didn't lose the Australian Open final because he suddenly forgot how to play tennis. What has changed, however, is the emotional fuel that once drove him relentlessly from one milestone to the next. For over a decade, Djokovic was chasing something. First, it was respect. Then, it was Grand Slam number one. Later, it was the race against Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal. Then came the pursuit of records. Most slams, most weeks at number one, most year-end number one finishes point one by one. He conquered them all. Now, the mountain has been climbed so many times that finding the same fire becomes increasingly difficult. Mouratoglou believes that without a burning internal need, even the greatest player of all time can fall just short. The Olympics tell a different story to back up his argument. Mouratoglou pointed to one event that tells a completely different Djokovic story. The Olympic Games. He was crazy motivated for the Olympic Games, Mouratoglou explained. He made the gold medal, and he beat Alcaraz in the final. That performance wasn't just good. It was vintage Djokovic. Locked in, emotionally invested, playing with a sense of urgency that bordered on obsession. The Olympics represented something Djokovic had never achieved before, and the hunger showed in every point he played. Against the same Carlos Alcaraz who denied him Grand Slam glory, Djokovic looked sharper, fiercer, and mentally unbreakable. For Mouratoglou, the contrast is impossible to ignore. Motivation versus expectation. One of the most intriguing parts of Mouratoglou's analysis is his suggestion that Djokovic no longer expects to win every Grand Slam he enters, and that expectation has always been central to his dominance. Every time he went to a Grand Slam, he was ready to win, Mouratoglou said. Now he's not, so he doesn't expect to go. Why? In Djokovic's prime years, entering a slam wasn't about seeing what would happen. It was about imposing his will on the tournament. That mindset alone broke opponents before they even stepped on court. Today, Djokovic remains a contender, but perhaps not an inevitability. That subtle shift can mean everything at the business end of majors, where belief often separates champions from finalists. The rise of Alcaraz and the new era pressure complicating matters further is the presence of players like Carlos Alcaraz, who represent not just elite competition, but a symbolic changing of the guard. Alcaraz isn't intimidated by Djokovic's aura. He grew up watching him, and now believes he belongs on the same stage. When Djokovic was chasing Federer and Nadal, the rivalry fueled him. Now, The challenge comes from players young enough to view Djokovic as a benchmark rather than a rival. Beating them requires not just skill, but sustained emotional investment, a daily grind that becomes harder when you've already achieved everything the sport can offer. Is the hunger really gone? To be clear, Mouratoglou isn't suggesting Djokovic is finished. In fact, he was emphatic about the Serbian's place in history. He is undoubtedly the best of all times, he said. Nobody anytime soon will beat this record. The question isn't whether Djokovic can win another Grand Slam. It's whether he wants it badly enough to endure the sacrifices required. Winning a major at 38 means months of obsessive preparation, mental isolation, and physical risk. For someone who has already rewritten the record books, the cost-benefit equation inevitably changes. What happens next? With Djokovic's next tournament still unconfirmed, speculation will only grow. Does he recalibrate his schedule to peak for one final slam push? Does he target specific events, perhaps Wimbledon or the US Open, where his motivation might naturally rise? Or does he increasingly prioritize legacy-defining moments like the Olympics over the relentless slam grind? If Mouratoglou is right, the answer won't be found in Djokovic's fitness stats or practice sessions, but in his eyes when he walks onto the biggest courts. Because when Novak Djokovic is fully motivated, history has shown that no record is safe. The real question now is whether the chase for Grand Slam number 25 still burns fiercely enough to bring that version of Djokovic back one more time.